When looking towards the 2021 NFL draft class, and specifically the wide receivers in this class, which tends to be pretty loaded, your list should probably start with LSU's wideout, Jamarr Chase. Jamarr Chase stands at 6'1" and around 205 pounds, and he possesses a lot of key traits and attributes that make him an elite wide receiver and an elite wide receiver prospect going into the 2021 NFL draft. In this video, I want to do a film analysis into what I think makes him a very well-rounded prospect who can jump into any team in 2021 and have an immediate positive impact. So let's get right into it. When diving into Jamarr Chase's film, the first thing that really stands out is his ability to flat out make big plays downfield. And this is because he possesses a ton of key factors and traits that help him. I'm going to break down a few plays that show a lot of these traits that he possesses. And we can start off with this first play against Alabama, and this is a first down, 1st and 10 in the first quarter, and it's just flat out a go ball down the right sideline. So Jamarr Chase is lined up, he's wearing number 1, and he's lined up on the bottom part of the screen, and he's matched up against Trayvon Diggs. And for those of you who don't know, Trayvon Diggs is who's drafted by the Dallas Cowboys in the second round of the 2020 NFL draft. So clearly Jamarr Chase is facing some high-end corners in this game and on the So this play starts off with Jamarr Chase lined up on the bottom side of your screen against Trayvon Diggs, number 7, and it's just a flat-out go route, which means that it's just a straight route downfield, and the goal of this play is to get a touchdown, and clearly if you watch the play, Jamarr Chase got that touchdown, and there's a few reasons why. So starting off, Trayvon Diggs, the corner here, is playing bail coverage, and he's playing what I assume would be cover 3, so he's responsible for that right side, that right third of the field. And you see that he's doing this, and you know it's zone clearly because he's watching the eyes of the quarterback, and that's something that you see a lot in zone coverage. And so you see at the start of the route, he does a little stutter before he actually takes off, and when he takes off, his goal here is to gain as much of that cushion as he can. Now, the first thing that really stands out here is his hand usage. And so pretty early in this route, Trayvon Diggs sees what's happening. He flips his hips, and he tries to get his right hand on the inside shoulder of Jamarr Chase, which is what DBs are taught to do. You want to keep your hand on the shoulder of the DB or at the waist, and so that way you don't sort of let them get away from you. But the first thing that Jamarr Chase does here is he does a quick jab with his left hand, and he essentially just rotates Trayvon Diggs' hand away from his shoulder, which opens it up entirely for him to go downfield. Now, this is clearly hand fighting, but we didn't see it getting called in college, and it's definitely not going to get called in the NFL. We see players get away with way worse on a daily basis, and this good technique with his hand usage is what opens up the play downfield and what inevitably leads to a touchdown for him. Another key thing, and sort of a smaller thing, is that Jamarr Chase gets his head around early in the route. And he does this because, you got to track the ball. It's that simple. And Trayvon Diggs, the corner here, he gets his head turned around way too late. So it's a key thing. Lots of guys can do everything that Jamarr Chase did here. They can do the hand fighting. They can do the quick release downfield, but they can't get their head around in time, and it just ends up being an incompletion. Or if the DB gets their head around first, it's an interception. And getting your head around quickly and tracking the ball is kind of key in order to make these completions. And that's what allows him to do probably the most impressive thing about this route, which is his body control. He's able to sort of adjust his body while jumping mid-air, and he puts his body right in between the ball and the defender. And that's a sort of elite body control that lots of wide receivers don't possess. And that's what makes Jamarr Chase a really good deep ball receiver. And for someone who's only 6'1" and around 200 pounds, he might even be lighter than that. He's pretty good at making these jump balls, and it's because of the little technical aspects he has here. You see a lot of foundational things that he's very good at. And from this play, you see his body control, which for me is the most impressive thing. You see him getting his head around. You see him using his hands to fight and get that little extra bit of separation, that half yard of separation that allows him to make. Now here's another play from that same Alabama game against the same corner, Trayvon Diggs. And if you notice, the key thing that I pointed out in that first play was that Trayvon Diggs was not physical early in the route. And here, he kind of flips the script. And the call here versus a cover 3 in the first play, this is a man-on-man cover 1 type of play. So everyone is man-on-man here, and that's including Trayvon Diggs, who's playing press man-on-man coverage, which means he's up at the line of scrimmage, and he's instantly throwing his arms out and jabbing at Jamarr Chase. And the whole goal of that is to sort of disrupt the wide receiver's timing with the quarterback and lead to a failed throw. And just so you notice, right when the ball is snapped, Trayvon Diggs is across the line of scrimmage, and he's throwing that right jab. Now, in retaliation to this aggressive movement by Trayvon Diggs, Jamarr Chase puts both his hands on his shoulder. He does a couple little stutter steps, and boom, he's able to throw Trayvon Diggs off of him. And again, we saw great hand fighting on that first play on the deep touchdown, and we see good hand fighting here, and that opens it up for an easy 30-yard gain for Joe Burrow and Jamarr Chase. And clearly we see the physicality is there. He's not the most physical wide receiver, but technically, like his technique-wise, he's very good at using his hands. And we see even against press man-on-man coverage, he was able to beat Trayvon Diggs here. And this game against Jamarr Chase single-handedly tanked Trayvon Diggs' draft stock. He was valued as a late first rounder, and he ended up going. Now, Trayvon Diggs wasn't the only NFL caliber player that Jamarr Chase put a highlight reel on. He also did it in the championship game against Clemson, and on this play, which happened early on in the second quarter on a 1st down and 10, he was lined up against AJ Terrell, who ended up going in the first round to the Atlanta Falcons. So again, another very talented player that Jamarr Chase absolutely dropped a highlight reel on. And from this play, Jamarr Chase is lined up in the slot against AJ Terrell, and AJ Terrell plays this really well in my opinion, at least earlier on in the route. Early on in the route, he gets his right hand on the inside shoulder of Jamarr Chase, which is again what DBs are taught to do. And right off, AJ Terrell. But again, similar to that first Trayvon Diggs play where Diggs got his arm on the inside shoulder of Chase, and Terrell did the same thing here. Chase was able to slap away that first punch by Diggs in that first play, and he does the same thing here using his inside arm, in this case his left arm, to do almost some sort of a karate jab, and he completely knocks AJ Terrell's arm off of his shoulder, and that helps make it a way easier catch. And this is a phenomenal throw by Joe Burrow here, and the only guy who can catch this ball is his guy Jamarr Chase. AJ Terrell doesn't have a shot, and you see Jamarr Chase make a one-handed grab here, which is something that is also pretty prominent in his arsenal, his ability to make catches. And you also see him getting his head turned around, and AJ Terrell doesn't even get his head turned around until it's way too late, and it just makes it a way easier catch for Jamarr Chase. Overall, this is just a phenomenal play, along with the one-handed grab at the end. Just overall, you can see his technique and his skill shining through this play. Now here's another play from that Clemson game, and it doesn't really have that much technique-wise, but it just shows the overall picture being very strong on Jamarr Chase and with his technique. So the entire point of this play is that Jamarr Chase is trying to sell that he's blocking and that the ball is going to go to the running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, in the flat here, and he does it to a T, which sets him up to explode downfield. And he's not the most athletically gifted guy, Jamarr Chase, but he has more than enough quickness to blast past AJ Terrell here and get that extra bit of separation he needs to come down with the ball on this fake screen touchdown almost, I guess you could call it. Just overall, another play that I very much enjoyed watching and seeing him execute to a T. And what you're going to get with Jamarr Chase is someone who is very technically sound, and he's going to execute plays very well, and that's something you need. Execution is what makes up the foundation of football, and Jamarr Chase is someone who can execute very well. Now we can talk about some of his route running, and I by no means think that he's a Jerry Jeudy or a Van Jefferson from the 2019 draft class of wide receivers, who are very good route runners, some of the best we've ever seen actually. But I think he's pretty sound in this aspect, and he does some things that help him increase his chances of coming down with the ball and bringing some extra separation where he might have not actually been able to make some. Now on this first play against Texas A&M, he's running a deep in or a dig route where he runs around 10 to 15 yards downfield and he cuts it back across the field, across the middle. And this play against Texas A&M, you can see some of his suddenness and just his ability to explode out of routes. He drops his hips at the top of the route here, and then he's able to cut in, and the DB is left about a yard behind, making this a way easier throw for his quarterback, Joe Burrow, who at the time was balling anyway and didn't need many easy throws, but still making it easier for a quarterback is something that no one's going to ever complain about. And his ability to explode out of routes and just be pretty clean can help his quarterback at the higher level. Now here's another route against Vanderbilt, and it ends up being a slant here, and Jamarr Chase is lined up in the slot, and he does something that we see someone like Justin Jefferson, another former LSU teammate, doing, where right off the line he takes sort of a half step. And you can go watch Brett Coleman's video on Justin Jefferson, but the reason wide receivers do this is because it gives you some extra momentum. And then he does something called a dead leg release here, where he sort of fakes with his right leg twice. He takes one quick step with his right leg, and then he does another one. And the reason Jamarr Chase does this is because he's trying to sell to the DB number 28 here that he's trying to cut downfield. He's trying to run a go route on the sideline instead of running a slant here, and he's able to explode. He gets the DB's hits turn, and number 28 is in no man's land, making it a very easy throw for Joe Burrow here. And we can transition to another part of his game and another facet of his game here, which is his ability to create yards after the catch. Now sticking to the same play here, you clearly see that after the slant, Jamarr Chase is gone. He outruns the first tackle attempt, and then after that, he's essentially waving bye-bye to these defenders. And again, this is Vanderbilt, who is not the highest quality of football players when it comes to college, so you got to keep that in mind. But Jamarr Chase is by no means the most athletically gifted player, but he has more than enough speed to do his fair share of damage. We saw someone like Justin Jefferson, again comparing to his former LSU teammate, who wasn't the quickest guy on film, but is also getting the job done in the NFL. And I think that Jamarr Chase possesses the same level of speed that Justin Jefferson possesses. Jamarr Chase isn't going to break a lot of tackles, but he will break tackles when the DB tends to go high on him and he's able to sort of shrug them off. It's very, very odd, but he's able to break those type of tackles, but usually he's not the most physical type of guy. He's a little bit lighter than Justin Jefferson, and because of that, he's not going to break a lot of tackles just by being a physical specimen like a DK Metcalf or Calvin Johnson. But he has some speed here, and he's able to make some guys miss occasionally. But his game is more about execution than it is making guys miss. Now we can hit on some of his negatives here, and like I said, he's not the most gifted guy. You're not getting a DK Metcalf out of Jamarr Chase, but you're getting someone who's very technically sound. His run blocking is also something that is quite sketchy, to say the least. He has some pretty poor run blocking effort. And again, he's not the heaviest guy, so he's not going to make a lot of these heavier corners and safeties and linebackers miss, and he's not going to be able to block very well, just flat out. So don't expect him to do that. And you're not drafting Jamarr Chase to block, so it is what it is. Now, overall, when I look at Jamarr Chase, I've got to compare him to Justin Jefferson, his former LSU teammate, who is most likely going to be the runner-up to Rookie of the Year behind Justin Herbert, but he's definitely the best rookie wide receiver out of this year's class, at least with numbers so far after year one. And Jamarr Chase, I think, is better than Justin Jefferson in a lot of the aspects of the game. I think he's not as good after the catch. He's not as physical, but I think his technique is way better. He's way more of a deep threat. He gets open way more. Just overall, everything about Justin Jefferson versus Jamarr Chase, I would give to Jamarr Chase, other than his rack ability for Justin Jefferson. And Jamarr Chase usually ends up facing the number one corner, which is something that Justin Jefferson could not say. And Jamarr Chase just dropped highlight reels on lots of guys, and these are NFL talented corners. And for that reason, I've got to say, he has the production, he has the technique, he has the higher level competition than Justin Jefferson. I think that Jamarr Chase is a better prospect coming out of college than Justin Jefferson was. And if I were to give a pro comp, I'd have to compare him to someone like Antonio Brown, and I hate to compare a player to a future Hall of Famer in Antonio Brown, but someone like Antonio Brown wasn't the most athletically gifted guy, but he had a lot of the technique down, and he was probably one of the best technically sound wide receivers that I've ever seen, and probably the most sound technique-wise of this generation in the last decade. And that's something that Jamarr Chase is very much copying in a regard. He's not the most athletically gifted guy, but he has the technique, and because of that, I think his ceiling could be Antonio Brown in the NFL.